And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of All the Mods 10. I'm your host, Undisturbed Potato, and as you guys can see, I have started to do a little bit more work on the castle. I have yet to finish it, however, I did take a little while to replicate this little roof and putting it over here. It was a little hard just because that one was straight, so it was a little easier to make it look the way I wanted it. This one, since it does curve a bit, it did involve a little bit of experimenting before it came out how I kind of wanted it. Of course, I do need to add a few structural beams so it looks a little more realistic slash nicer. Of course, I also have to put some lighting, but as you can see, I kind of have an idea of how I wanted to do it. So I have this side and this piece. In between this episode and last, I have been running the reactor a little bit. I've been running the reactor here and there so that we can produce some polonium and plutonium pellets. So as you can see, we have a good old 985 and 41, which is way more than enough than I think we'll ever need. Over here, as you can see, we are a little full on power, and we're going through energy very slowly. So, I think it is roughly a good time to create our power bank. So, when I do press W, it does show us this little guide on how we can make it, but that's about it. What I do know is the max size can be an 18 by 18, but damn, I thought that we were able to use it in a different way. Never mind. So let me just make a couple of these and then I'll be back. Alright, so slight change of plans. Just because I should have made the induction cells earlier to create the power bank. However, since I didn't, we are going to be taking a little bit of time to actually get that said and done. So instead, we are going to be making the supercritical phase shifter. If you don't know what this does, this guy is where we're going to be dumping a ton of our energy into so that it can produce us some antimatter. If you take a quick look over here, antimatter is made in the chemical crystallizer because it is a liquid or chemical and then turns into an item. But if you click on this, you can see how we gotta feed the supercritical phase shifter some polonium so that it can turn into antimatter. And if you take a quick look over here, the energy required to turn this into this is kind of high. So we are going to set this guy up, which will be a nice little power drain, which will allow us to drain a lot of this energy super quickly and will allow us to run our reactor for longer, which is nicer because then we'll actually be able to pull out that polonium and send it through the shifter, and then it'll just all come together and helps out, basically. So where do I want to put this? If we press F3G, we could open up the chunk loader, and I do plan on putting the power bank right here. So we are actually going to put the supercritical phase shifter here, and then we'll put the power bank somewhere along this side. So to build this guy, you could just come over here and take a quick look at this picture, which is pretty nice and pretty convenient because as you can see, it is basically a 5x5, just missing the sides and creating some indentations to create a circle. So as you can see, we are going to be following this template. So let's grab some of our casing, and I think right here would be good. Yep. So we'll do that, and then right here it's another 3. I think I'm doing it correctly, but I could be wrong. 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1. So we take a quick look over here. 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. Okay, and that's basically going to be the design all the way around. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'll be back when I have this all done. See you guys in a moment. Alright guys, and we are back after setting up the SPS little reactor. So, as I said, it is 3131. That's probably the best way I like explaining it. It is a 7x7, not a 5x5. Sorry about that. But yeah, the walls are just reactor glass. And then you do need a port wherever you are connecting one of the little supercharged laser things. Here we are using 2 to replicate what is in the drawing. However, you only need 1. Get this working with 2. So, some things you are going to need are at least 2 ports along the sides. One you're going to want to be input, the other one is output. The output will be sending the antimatter, and that has to be sent to a chemical crystallizer. And then for the input, we are going to want polonium sent over here. So just like the long cable that I routed all the way over here, I did disconnect it. I decided to make a tiny little hole over here, so it's not inside the castle. It's still a little outside of it, but it will lead over here, letting this work. So as we produce the radioactive waste, it'll come over here, get turned into polonium, and then it'll be sent all the way back over here and sent into the machine. So that's how we are going to get this to work. So the last step for this to work is to connect this bad boy. So we got our flux point. We have a ton of energy in here. We want to get rid of this as fast as possible. So the best way to do that is to put this guy down, connect him, and just like that, this guy's already outputting as much energy as possible. I'm gonna give him the bypass limit and see how much energy this gave. We'll fill it up, and we still have a ton over here. So we are going to have to turn it on just for a moment so that this can start working. So come over here, turn this guy on, and just like that, this guy is starting to produce some antimatter. And as you look over here, you can see it's starting to produce some of it, but it won't get to work until it has enough to produce a pellet. To make one pellet, we do need 1,000 milligrams, 1,000 millibuckets. Yes. So just a little FYI. But as you can see, this guy is going through our energy like crazy. Everything that we are importing is getting immediately output over there. So this 2.2 million roughly, and the 600 or the 420,000 we are producing from our extreme reactor is getting sent over here, as you can see. So one of the best ways to limit it is by saying this guy will only transfer 2 million RF per tick, so that it only gets sent over here. So that's what's going to be working for us. This guy should be holding its own, no damage. And if we come over here, as you can see, our energy is getting used up pretty much immediately. And if we take a quick look over here, there shouldn't be any issues with anything, but worst case scenario, if we end up having to turn off our reactor, we can always just come back to our old base, come over here, and check out if our reactor is working, which I kind of wanted to check. As you can see, this guy is struggling just because we haven't given him any more uranium. So let me do that real quick. As long as this guy stays still. Boom. Grab a few of that. Toss this guy in here. And I think we are going to put him to rest, just because we do have a ton of cyanide, which we can use later on, not to mention the seeds. So, worst case scenario, we'll always come back and turn this guy on if we ever need a jump start whenever it comes to our reactors. But just like that, everything should be getting powered off of this guy over here. One thing I do want to check real quick is this. I want to see the power consumption, just because it could get a little dangerous. As you can see, it is roughly at 200, but every once in a while it does spike up to 288. So one of the solutions for that is to come over here to our fission reactor and bump up the production rate, which, if we remember from last episode, we were at 256. However, I don't think we need to make it go that high, so instead we'll jump to, let's see, 160. Let's see what happens if we bump to that. It looks like there's no issue here, but if we come over here, now we are producing 2.7 million, which I believe that should help this area out, as well as maintain this. Worst case scenario, if we are not producing as much energy as needed, I can always bump this guy up just a wee bit more. After all, our max burn rate is 444 millibuckets per tick, and our setup is producing roughly about 256. So there's plenty of room for changing the variables to increase our power, and it looks like we are producing a good amount of this over time. Okay, so the next part of the video, after setting up the SPS machine and watching it work, is to create our power bank. So the max size induction matrix we can make is an 18 by 18 by 18, but I don't think I'm gonna go that big. However, I'm still gonna make one pretty large battery, and I'm debating whether I want to make it a square or a rectangle, just because these guys are already squares and we have a somewhat looking spear here. You'll see. All right, so the size design for the induction matrix that I went for is a 13 by 7 by 7. So it's a nice little rectangle, and to actually be able to store power, since this technically is a completed multi-block, is these induction cells and providers. So if we hover over this, as you can see, the induction provider has an output rate of 52 million RF per tick. If we put 4 down, that is roughly 208 million or 210, rounded to whatever you want. And then if we look at how much energy we could store, each one of these ultimate induction cells allows us to put 1.6 trillion FE. So with 8 of them, that's roughly, I think, like 12 trillion. So pretty good number if you ask me. I'm gonna put down a couple of these cells, and then the providers will just go right on top, just like that. And we'll make it look like a little pyramid. Sweet. Just come back out here, put some more structural glass down, and just like that, this guy is now a complete structure. And as you can see, we do have 12.8 trillion FE that can now be stored in here. So if we come over here and grab ourselves a little flux plug, all right. Yeah, I got a little tripped up there, but right here on the input, you will be putting a flux point. Over here on this one, that's output, you will be putting a flux plug. To set these guys, all you have to do is use your configurator to put input, output. But as you can see, you can use the induction matrix to help you check how much energy you are using, how much is going in, how much is getting output. So during that time, we are able to store this energy, which is pretty cool, because now this will allow us to run this throughout the night without having to worry about this guy getting full. Of course, we could always just sleep so that it goes back to normal, but as you can see, we can store a ton of energy because we already moved roughly 16 million. I mean, here if we come and put bypass, look at how fast this is actually going to be charging. Our input is roughly 2 to 3 million, which is already an insane number. Output from here is 800,000, but if I turn this on, yeah, this is just regulating itself while slowly charging it. But if we just turn this back off so we don't see that crazy number, yeah, look at that. Super, super cool how you could actually see the numbers, everything changing, and knowing how much energy you are inputting and outputting throughout the system. But yeah, let's sleep through the night real quick. Get our solar generator going again, or whatever that thing is called. And just like that, this guy has a ton of polonium stored up throughout the night, and this guy's gonna get to work, and just like that, we are producing our antimatter. A little warning is it does take 40 million Fe per tick to produce 1 millibucket of antimatter. That's the reason why it takes so long. But one of the answers to that is coming up in the next episode, and that would be to create the fusion reactor. I did plan on getting into this, however, the induction cells did take quite a while to autocraft, so I'd rather prepare everything, have it all set to build, and have the machines available to set up our heavy water farm to get some deuterium, and set up a new double tower set up over here to produce lithium so that we could turn it into tritium so that we could get the fuel necessary for that fusion reactor. And so this episode is going to be a little shorter of a episode, and that's because I do have some other things that I do need to work on and get done. But we did manage to build 2 new things and add it to our beautiful world, and that is the SPS and this induction matrix. Which, just a little recap, we do have 2 coils, however we are only providing energy to one of them currently, and that's the only reason why you see that one. But yeah, as you can see, we only have one of these supercharged coils working at the moment. I do not know why the other one isn't turning on, even though I did put another flux point down there. If you guys have the answer to that, make sure you leave it down in the comments, and while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. But yeah, I would really appreciate it if you guys knew why this guy doesn't want to put in any work. It would be pretty cool to see if both of them turn on, see the lightning going everywhere. But yeah, that's how we are starting to produce antimatter. I do hope that by the time you guys come back, I have at least 3 to 4 pellets going, just so we can show off what that is used for. And then our beautiful induction matrix over here, which is monitoring our input and output, which is pretty cool because this can help you organize your stuff. Right now it doesn't look that organized just because I do have everything running off one network. However, next episode, when we do create our fusion reactor, I do plan on creating another network just so that we can start putting all the power in here and then start portioning it out to the supercritical phase shifter and all our other machines. A little something that we will get into, as well as getting into the nuclear reactor, the fusion reactor I should say, is if we come down here, there is a new tech mod that was added. I am a bit curious about it just because I've never used it, / how I said it is rather new, and that is Oritech. Or Oritech, I don't know what the proper pronunciation is, but this now adds an item called Manhattan Module, which is what we are going to need for the All the Mod Star. However, this mod has some pretty unique characteristics in the fact that it is another multi-block mod that turns into different things, but it is pretty cool, or the concept of it is really cool, and I do want to explore that in the next episode. So be prepared to look forward to that. I do plan on getting quite a bit of stuff prepared, messing around with it, just so that after we finish setting up the stuff needed for our fusion reactor, I can explain this a little better to you guys and have some fun with it. Because yeah, from what I've seen in some mod reviews, this is going to be very fun, and they do have their own end game energy production base, and that is through nuclear power, which seems super cool, and I do want to get into it just because you never know. Mechanism and Create is one of the two mods that I see in most of these tech related mod packs, as well as integrated dynamics, basically all the storages and immersive engineering. And this guy is a new upcoming guy that might also be along with all those. So we'll definitely make sure to get a little dive into that, and if you guys enjoy it, I might go further in depth, but I do know I am going to incorporate it into this world. I do plan on trying to get into as many things as possible without overwhelming myself or you guys. So that, guys, I know it was a little short, but thank you guys for watching. Until next time, peace.